Hello, today I will be showing you how to use the conditional scheduling feature within Venus Control Suite. The conditional scheduling tool is going to allow you to set up messages to play on your display when certain criteria has been met. A good example of when you might want to use this is to play specific messages when the temperature outside reaches a certain point. The conditional scheduling tool will look at criteria you set up in the software, and when that criteria is met, messages that were set by you, the user, will play. So let's get started. The first step is to make sure that we have a data source where we're going to be pulling that information from. We're going to navigate into the Data Studio app. If you do have conditional scheduling in your account, you'll see two icons on the left. The first icon will list our data sources, whereas the second one will show our conditions. I'm going to use my KFSD data source for this example. This is the temperature being brought in from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. If I click on that data source, we can see that data source address. And if you click on the paperclip icon, you can see what info that source is bringing into Venus Control Suite. If you haven't trimmed any data yet, you'll simply be pulling in all the info from that data source. To trim the data, in other words, only select the data from the source you'll be using, click on the data trimming on the left side. Here I can see I'm only pulling in temp_F, which is the temperature in Fahrenheit. Clicking on Edit Properties will allow me to select other data from this data source as well. After we make sure our data source is saved, we'll then want to go into the second tab, which is our conditions. You'll see right now I have one condition in there, which is when the temperature is above or equal to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If I click on that condition, you'll see I have all of my information filled out here. Let's go ahead and start from scratch and make a new condition. This one will be when the temperature is less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to click on Add Condition. From here, we can give it a name. We'll call this one Temp Below 50. If you want to give your condition a description to make it more easily identifiable in the software, you can do that as well. Underneath that is where we are going to be setting up our criteria. The condition type is either going to be a number or text field. Since we're comparing temperatures in this case, we are going to be using a number. You can use text if you'll be comparing a text value from your data source instead. You'll see you'll have an option for a static value or a dynamic value for our left and our right comparisons. Static value is going to simply be a specific number that you type in that will not change, whereas the dynamic value is a value that can change periodically. For example, the value we'll be grabbing from our data source that is constantly changing. So in this case, we are going to start off with our dynamic value on the left, which will be the source we're grabbing from our KFSD data source. Underneath that, we're going to click on our data feed and find that KFSD data source. After selecting that, you'll then see a field path pops up below. In the field path, click the icon with the pencil. That will bring up all of your data fields from that data source. We're going to click on our temp_F. After that box has been checked, click on Done. That's our first comparison, the temperature in Fahrenheit from our KFSD data source. In the middle, we have our operator. If we open that up, you'll see we can set it to equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than, or less than or equal to. We are going to set ours to be less than, since our previous condition was greater than or equal to. We don't want this one to be less than or equal to, otherwise when the temperature is exactly 50 degrees, both of our conditions will trigger. Then on the right, this will be our other comparison number. This one is going to be static, and we are going to set it to 50. Reading our condition from left to right, it reads out as when our dynamic data value, which remember is the temperature pulling from our KFSD data source, is less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, then this condition is met and it triggers. You can also see a preview at the bottom showing you the current condition. Since it's currently 12 degrees Fahrenheit in Sioux Falls, we can see that that is less than 50, meaning that this condition will trigger. Make sure to save your condition. Now we can see our two conditions: temperature above or equal to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and temperature less than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But we're not done yet. We need to set these conditions to the specific media we want to play. I already went through and created two pieces of media. Both of them show date, time, and temperature, but one has a snowy cabin in the background, and the other has a bright sun in the background. I want the sunny background one to play when the temperature is greater than or equal to 50 degrees, which was our first condition, and I want the snowy cabin one to play when the temperature is below 50 degrees, which is our other condition. I'm going to go into my scheduling app to open up my playlists. I already have a date, time, and temperature playlist created up at the top. If I click on that, I can see both my date, time, and temperature hot and my date, time, temperature cold are in there. Without the conditional scheduling applied to these files, they will both play as long as no specific playlist properties are set up. The date, time, and temperature hot one will play, followed by the date, time, temperature cold one. We're going to click on the hot one first. On the right, you'll see your standard custom parameters such as date range, days of the week, time range, and duration, but you'll now get a new one at the bottom for conditional scheduling. Of course, make sure you set up your conditional scheduling just like we did prior in the Data Studio app before you attempt to add it in your playlist. Since we already did that, we can now set up our conditional rule. Click on the condition, and in the blank box, click it to bring up a drop-down list of your conditions. Since this is the hot message, we are going to select temp above or equal to 50. You'll see an icon appear in the bottom left of the thumbnail for your media file, indicating a condition is set to it. We're going to do the same thing for our date, time, temperature, cold message, but instead select temp below 50 as our condition. Make sure to save your playlist. When looking at a list of your playlist, you'll also see that same icon that we saw in our media file, indicating that there is a condition set up in this playlist. Now, both of our conditions are set. So when the temperature per the KFSD XML file is reading 50 degrees Fahrenheit or greater, then our hot message will play and our cold message will not. And when the temperature reads below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, then our cold message will play and our hot one will not. There are many other ways you can use conditional scheduling to set specific messages to play when certain criteria is met. The only limit is your creativity. Start experimenting with the conditional scheduling feature and coming up with new ways to play your messages when you want to. As always, stay tuned to our YouTube channel for more videos like this one.